Welcome back to American Agenda. Over the weekend, cities across the country witnessed protests in their streets. In Portland, Rochester, New York, now Pittsburgh. These gatherings have escalated to violent riots, which have continued for days. Just when the violence ends in one city, it seems to start in another. How can Americans end the cycle? Here to weigh in is our A-plus panel for the day. Host of America Right Now on Newsmax TV, Tom Basile, that just did 2 hours on the air, by the way, and former Navy SEAL and FBI agent Jonathan Gillen. Jonathan, tell me how this ends.
Well, that's a big question because I don't know. It could end in the president being reelected and he restores some sense of civility in this country, or it could end in civil war. That's absolutely truth. I mean, people have to understand right now, and this is not me making any big, huge announcement here, but we are literally in an armed conflict now. I mean, people have died on both sides. It's happened numerous times over the past month. Police officers have been injured to the point where they're blind now. And now we see this where people can't even go out and enjoy dinner or a lunch without being accosted. It's gotten to a point now where I'm really concerned with how people are going to start reacting that have nothing to do with the protest. And that's where I think things are going to get out of control.
Yeah, we're looking right now at video where these protesters are walking by. This woman comes up to another woman's table, takes the drink, tosses it down, walks off. A lot of cussing and yelling and that sort of thing as they walk through. Tom Basile, this kind of thing this is not a protest. That's not a protest. No. That goes beyond a protest.
No, it could be an assault. It could be considered even a battery, depending on. But what you're going to see here, Bob, is I think Rochester is a very interesting case test for this for how we bring this to an end. And the reason being is that in Rochester, you have a Republican district attorney. It's not something that we've talked a lot about, Republican district attorneys. And you also have a police force that is actually engaging with these rioters and these protesters. George Soros spent nearly $1 million in 2019 trying to get this DA out of office. He failed. And she has really taken a very different approach that we have seen. She's trying to keep the peace and using police more effectively, and that's just simply what we haven't seen in a lot of these other jurisdictions, where you have district attorneys letting people go, mayors and DAs telling the cops, we're not going to hold people, we're not going to prosecute people, don't even let these folks, don't even arrest these people.
Well, Tom, I think just to make clear, Rochester was the location where that gentleman who seemed to be out of his mind. He's running around naked, yelling and that sort of thing. And these police officers put a hood over his head and pushed him to the ground, and he died. Right. And so that was ugly to see. I don't care who you are. It didn't seem like that's the way it was supposed to turn out, right?
But there's a difference between the approach of the next day the mayor coming out and telling cops to stand down and we're going to defund the police, and what we've seen so far in Rochester, which is calls for training and reasonable police reform, and the DA saying, you know what, we're not going to stand for violence.
Yeah. Jonathan, I think ideally everybody seems to agree some fixes at some local police stations might be necessary. Whether it's systemic is another argument, but there's some training maybe that could help. I think you and I would agree that most cops are good, and I want them in my community. I don't want to defund the police department. I want to increase funding. I think that makes me safer. But what steps need to be taken to satisfy people so we don't see what you're talking about as a possibility, which would be a civil war?
I'm going to be honest with you here. There's nothing we can do. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Because this isn't about police brutality. It's not about whether or not Black Lives Matter. This is about a revolution of leftists in this country that are, and that's why I agree with Tom what he's saying about Rochester and the attorney general, the prosecutor, whatever it is, and how they are Republican. But here's the reality. This is just a test in Rochester or wherever anything pops up that they can go in and destroy a city. That's what they're doing. I have friends that work for the airlines. These people are flying all over the place. I have friends that are on the ground that are feeding me intelligence that are counter-operatives in these protests. They're so organized, and it's the same in every city, and they're literally shuffling these people around and training. This isn't something new. So it doesn't even matter. The fact that what happened with this guy who was on PCP and he was crazy, and I think putting a hood over him, and I watched the video, I didn't see him getting slammed to the ground. But all that is to the side. I will even go as far as to say George Floyd, who was murdered by police, has nothing to do with this. This is just the left carrying out a plan up into a minimum the election process. And then if they don't get what they want there, this is going to go even more crazy. And there's nothing we can do to stop it as far as police training goes. But police training does need to happen, I'll give you that.
Yeah, and I did not say he was slammed to the ground, but I think he was pushed to the ground. Obviously, something went wrong, and maybe the PCP had something to do with it, or the conditions there. It seemed to be raining, snowing. It was a horrible situation. But I do get a little concerned, Tom, if we talk about civil war. I don't want a civil war, and are suddenly we in a civil war and we don't know it?
Well, you clearly have very well-financed, well-organized, you call them anarchists, call them domestic terrorists, whatever you want to call them, that are going around the country, and we're seeing this pop up. I don't think that what we're seeing in any of these places, particularly when you see the same tactics over and over again, that it is a coincidence. And that's one of the reasons why I've been very clear that the Attorney General of the United States, William Barr, the CIA, if there were foreign actors involved in all of this, they need to really start telling people what's going on here, so that this idea that this has to do about systemic racism, this farce, is exposed for the American people.
Or that Black Lives Matter is the whole point. It's way beyond that.
Black lives have been destroyed by this movement.
I just want to say this. I have no faith in the Attorney General Barr. I have no faith in Durham. I have no faith in Christopher Wray. They have done nothing, and no one, and I was an FBI agent, no one has done anything over the past 4 years to help this president to stop this. And it's been building the entire time. They've done nothing.
All right. Thank you very much, Jonathan and Tom Basile. Gentlemen, thank you. And remember, you can catch Tom every Saturday on America Right Now. And that's right here on Newsmax at 12 p.m. Eastern. Coming up, we'll be back with more of American Agenda after this.